Welcome again, and another Seminole War program. You notice the background behind me, that's Major Dade, Dade's Battle reenactment. We're going to talk about some early military career on him today and connected with a Fort Duval. Now, let me share screen here. This is Fort Duval in the town of Suwannee on the Suwannee River, right near at the mouth of the river where it runs out into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, Fort Duval was established in November 1826, so 197 years ago, almost at the 200th anniversary of it. And it's pretty much a forgotten fort today, but it's very important in the establishment of Fort King, which I'll be talking about in a little minute. Now, this is a historical marker on the Seminole War Heritage Trail, and looks like there's picnic pavilions or something behind it, like it's a recreation area. I have not found it yet, but I just went on the waymarking website and found it there. It's not easy to find. In fact, I'm not sure if the background looks the same because that area got hit hard by that Hurricane Ian uh, last October. So let's go on from there. So Fort Duval, let me share the screen again here. Let's go to Google Maps, Suwannee, Florida. You see, this is on the Big Bend area on the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. Not too much going on here. It's all marshes and mangroves. Now it is mangroves. I remember what used to not be. You see the Wakasasa Bay Preserve, Cedar Key, Rosewood, the Otter Creek above that, 98. That's usually the road I take between Tallahassee and uh, Dade Battlefield there. So you'll see the town of Suwannee. It's connected by County Road 349. You have to come down from Old Town up there, and it's a long drive coming down. I guess it's pretty much a fishing town if I can zoom up on here. So let's look for the historical marker. And we're not really sure where the fort actually was. It was in this area, Suwannee Community Center. I think that's it. We'll go right here, see if I can get a street view. Oh, okay. Well, here it is right here, Suwannee Community Center. And looking for my street view. Where is it? Okay, here it is. So I'm at the intersection of this community center, going down the road. And where is it? Somewhere around here. Oh yeah, go down here a little bit. Okay, that little community center, it's right down this road. You know, no wonder I never found it driving by. It's back there somewhere. It's almost as hard to find as the Fort Peyton marker that I talked about a few months ago near St. Augustine. That's down 200 yards down a dirt path off a residential street, you know, and this is County Road 349 there. That's looking north towards Old Town, coming down from Old Town. And so I got to check that out next time I'm there, if it's still there, if the hurricane didn't take it out. So Camp Duval, this is 1826, after the Treaty of Moultrie Creek, and still having problems between the settlers and the Seminoles. Pull up a newspaper article here. go back to our Fort Duval newspaper article, and says there's uh, on December 6th, Indians committed a wanton unprovoked act on the west side of the Aucilla River on the Carr family. And Captain Dade, he's not a major yet. In fact, I'm not sure if Dade is married yet. He uh, might have not. He might get married next year in Pensacola. So Captain Dade's given uh, orders to come down from Pensacola, where he's stationed at Cantonment Clinch, which is Fort Brancas. Used to be an army barracks there. And it was for several years, even during the Coast Artillery days. I think is finally wiped out by the hurricanes or something. So he's given orders to establish a post on the Suwannee River, near the mouth of the Suwannee River. Here's the post returns. There's only 2 months of that. Has the officers present. This is November 1826. 52 aggregate is so only 52 men at the fort. You have Major Dade, Captain James Glassell, who will establish Fort King. I think he's absent at that moment. There's Captain Hook, who's also absent. He's up in Washington, D.C. And Benjamin Pierce, he'll be later Colonel Pierce, more well known during the Second Seminole War. And so that was the first month, and the second month, few of the more of the officers show up, and the number jumps up to 120 men at the post. So short life, but it's a forgotten fort. It's actually pretty important. So Major Dade goes, or I'm sorry, Captain Dade. I forever call him Major Dade, so I'll not go and get over that. And he's pursuing Indians that committed the murders, and he doesn't have enough men, and so he gets the help of the Apalachicola Indians, uh, Cochrane, and I think John Blount, and all that. And afterwards, they even get issued medals. I think 20 medals were struck and handed out. This is John Quincy Adams, who was president at that time. This is one at the National Museum of American Indian. Interesting enough that this was from a tribe up in I think the Great Lakes area, who the son of the chief who wore this, his name was Aucilla too. He was born a year after Chief Aucilla died. In fact, I need to do a video of all the Aucilla celebrity name people. John Quincy Adams, President Adams, did not like his portrait on the peace medal. He called it cheap and unartistic and kind of rejected it, maybe because they make him look really bald and have like a hawkish nose on him. Maybe he just doesn't like it. But that's your peace medal. So, if you're looking for a medal for this time period, that's what it is. Here's the letter from the adjutant letters of Fort Duval, of course, named after Florida governor of the time, William Pope Duval. He was governor for 12 years, the longest serving governor of Florida, territorial governor. He had a son who was killed at the Alamo, and he was the second territorial governor after Andrew Jackson. And after him, he was also followed. He was succeeded by Governor John Eaton. John Eaton was the Secretary of War who left Washington because of scandal with the Jackson administration. Here's Captain Dade's letter, his handwriting. Well, I had to transcribe it because this time for this letter, I can't really struggle through reading it. So I transcribed it right here. And so I'll read you what the letter says. Fort Duval, December 8th, 1826. Sir, I have the honor to inform you that our affairs with the Indians in the vicinity have assumed a most menacing aspect. On the morning of the 3rd, That's 3rd of December, 1826. I marched with 20 of the troops, Major Cochrane and his 10 warriors. Major Cochrane is Chief Cochrane, who lived in around Blountstown and what's today Blountstown in Calhoun County, in search of a party of Miccosukee Indians who are reported to have committed depredations at Mr. Bellamy's. That's the plantation owner. The Bellamy Road is named after him, and in the neighborhood. Uh, so notice here that he says it's Miccosukee Indians. He's making an effort in this letter to make a difference between the Seminole and the Miccosukee Indians. About 11 o'clock a.m., 13 miles from this place, we had a good fortune to take a prisoner who informed us that there were 20 warriors prepared for war and some women and children not a great distance before him. He was directed to go in front with an interpreter and lead us on the trail. This is one of the prisoners. And after marching about half a mile, they struck in the woods and in a short time stopped and informed the warriors that warriors were approaching. They were painted, and their manner and conduct evinced a disposition to be hostile. Their party consisted of 13 warriors and a large number of women and children who were on the way to Old Town on the Suwannee. Upon seeing the troops pass, 7 of the warriors returned and other 6 kept on with the women and children. So 6 of the warriors are taking the women and children to safety, and their 7 are going to distract the soldiers. The 7 warriors were made prisoners and their guns taken from them. One of them I detained as a hostage, and the other 6 were permitted, on promising to bring the balance of their party to me at the fort to follow them. Agreeable to the promise, they all joined on the 4th and amounted in number to 48. They all set out for their limits on the 5th. Let me make a quick note. I made a transcription error here. So usually I have to go over the transcriptions about 3 times to catch all the mistranslations or whatever. The guns I detained to be given up when their chiefs called for them. On the 7th, about 3 o'clock p.m., I received information from several council sources by express that a family of 5 persons has been murdered by Indians on the Aucilla. That's the Aucilla River, which today's borders between Leon and Jefferson County, Florida. And now Colonel Gadsden, that's James Gadsden, who negotiated the Treaty of Moultrie Creek, and also later the Gadsden Purchase in Arizona and New Mexico. Colonel Gadsden with a party had gone in pursuit. There was much alarm at Mr. Bellamy's, where there were a large number of ladies. Oh, Mr. Bellamy must be quite a ladies' man. I sent Lieutenant J.B. Shaw of the Commissary Department, he being the only officer under command, with a sergeant and 12 men to quiet their fears. Well, Captain Dade, he can only command the officers under his command, so he sends part of his command to Mr. Bellamy's place. My company is entirely inadequate to the importance of the duties before it. It was expected that a full company would have been ordered here. The efficient strength of the men is 1 captain, 2 sergeants, 3 corporals, 1 musician, and 36 privates. So a little more than 50% company strength. I desired before I left Cantonment Clinch that the company should be completed, but Colonel Clinch, for fear of offending his officers, would not transfer any men from their companies without their consent. So there's a little resentment that Captain Dade shows towards Colonel Clinch. 5 men of the company have been recommended by assistant surgeon for discharge, 2 in confinement for desertion, and 4 men here entirely unfit for the active duties of the field. It has not been organized as a company of light infantry. Uh, Anybody who's been in the Army, I remember when I was in Germany, one of the soldiers said, light infantry, what? There's nothing light about it. You carry around a 100-pound pack. That's not light at all. So, and anyway, is not been organized as a company of light infantry agreeable to Article 22, paragraph 138 of the Army regulations. I trust that the earliest measures may be taken to furnish me with sufficient complement of officers and men. Dade is always complaining about not having enough officers and men, which was really an Army-wide problem at this point, having half-strength companies. Since my arrival here, which was on the 25th of November, I've constructed a small breastwork of logs from 5 to 6 feet high and in extent 140 by 130 feet on the eastern bank of the Suwannee. A small blockhouse is now underway and will be furnished in a day or two. So we got a description of what the fort looked like, not necessarily where it is, except it's on the eastern bank of Suwannee, which could be in a lot of places, but it's near the mouth. So it's not a very large fort. Pickett's only about 6 feet tall at the most, and he's building one blockhouse. I had another source that said had two, but anyway, right now this letter just says it has one blockhouse, and it's 140 by 130 feet. Temporary sheds have also been completed for officers and men. The winter clothing has not yet been received, for which the company is now suffering much. In a few days, we shall be in want of provisions. They were expected by the way of St. Mark's daily. 2 wagons and teams, all we could procure, were dispatched 10 or 12 days ago for them. In compliance with an order from your department on the 13th March 1826, I have deemed it proper to make this report. As it sounds like he's, a little more of that resentment, saying, I guess by order I do this report. I am respectfully your obedient servant, and it's not signed, but it's to Major General Edmund P. Gaines. A true copy, B.W. Butler, aide de camp. And there's no signature, but on the margins it said Captain F.L. Dade. That's Francis Langhorne Dade. And this letter is registered in the Adjutant General Letters of 1826 under D, unregistered. So this is an unregistered letter, which is interesting. Usually they're done that when they're not so complimentary about things, and they contain a lot of criticism. They're not so public as the letters usually are. And then at the bottom, the adjutant writes with a note, though this communication is without signature, is known to be from Captain Dade from an accompanied document. So that's pretty interesting. Brief history of Camp Dade, or Fort Dade. Didn't last very long, not very big, mainly forgotten today. We're not even sure where it was, but this led to Fort King, because General Clinch and General Gaines, they're running back and forth. Well, I guess it was Colonel Clinch at this time, Duncan L. Clinch. He said that this position of this post was totally inadequate. It's not really protecting the frontier, and the fort was supposed to keep the Indians from attacking the frontier and keep the settlers from attacking the Indians. And it needs to be put at a better place, more positioned on top of the reservation land. And so a few months after this letter, it was decided to establish Cantonment King. Uh, Captain James Glassell uh, built Fort King next to the Indian Agency in 1827. So uh, the failure of this fort led to the establishment of Fort King. Interesting, at the same times, Governor Duval was saying that the Indians need to be removed west of the Mississippi. So John Quincy Adams is president. Governor Duval's already talking about removing all the Indians. So anyway, for this program, I'm drinking some tea. I got this on my trip to Savannah the other week. It's Old Fort Jackson uh, gunpowder tea. There's actually green tea, gunpowder tea. This is like the fourth Fort Jackson I've been to. I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for Army basic training. I went to Fort Jackson in Plaquemines Parish down south of New Orleans, who was famous during the Civil War when Admiral Farragut blew his fleet past him and pretty much made the coastal forts inadequate for defense against the new modern cannon and ships. There's also Jackson Barracks, I guess you can call that a fort, in New Orleans, and Fort Jackson in Savannah. It's not named after Andrew Jackson, it's named after James Jackson, who was a figure in Savannah during the Revolutionary War. And it's an interesting place to visit too. I should do another video on that. So anyway, that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed it.